I thought it'd be fairly easy. Dating Renee was super easy. We got along so well. When we went out to hang out with my boys, everything went smoothly. So I thought when we got married, it would be easy. I thought it would be like one big happy family. I thought it would be similar to our first family, where Renee was like their stepmom, but it was kind of like the same as their mom and in the way our family would interact. So I had high expectations that would be pretty easy and pretty similar to our first family. It was harder than we expected. We each had our own way of doing things. We had done our whole lives, me with the kids and Renee either on her own or when she had kids. And now they were different. We lived together, so we had to find ways to merge our way of doing things or compromise or do it one way or the other. And it was really, really hard. It was much more difficult than either of us thought it would be.
Welcome to the Blended Family Coaching Show, where you'll discover how to move your stepfamily from just surviving to truly thriving.
Grab your headphones and listen in as we share practical, real-life strategies for building healthy bonds,
Understanding the kids' perspective,
romance and partnership,
parenting with great teamwork,
and yes, even co-parenting with a difficult ex.
We're Mike and Kim Anderson, and we believe with the right tools, every step couple can overcome the common challenges of stepfamily life.
Join us for authentic and sometimes comical conversations to discover how you can lead your family with confidence and create the future you really want.
Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 53. We are so excited that you're here in this third installment on our series all about overcoming discouragement.
Yep.
Hey, we wanted to give a quick shout out before we move on to a new friend named Jane who left us a review over on Apple Podcasts. One of the things that she said that I really love is her closing sentence. She says, "Thank you both for sharing your journey so openly and helping others like me grow along this bumpy road." Thank you so much for that encouragement, yes, Jane. And it's interesting that her title of this is Encouragement, where we're in the middle of a series about discouragement.
I love that.
I like that too. But what's so cool about what she talks about sharing our story openly and helping others is we're not the only ones that do that,
That's
right?
right.
And we get to talk to people who help in lots of different ways along the way. And what's really unique and fun about this series is that we have clients coming on and they're using their story to share with you and make an investment. And you know what? This is about community. It's about helping each other and moving along the way, empathizing with each other, but then also growing new skills and moving forward.
And sharing our insights.
Yeah. So thank you so much for those nice comments, Jane, and for the encouragement. It really was encouraging for us. And, if you have not actually left a rating or a review, we would love for you to join Jane in doing that. That would help us. We haven't quite hit 50 reviews yet. That's kind of our goal right now. And we would love to cross that 50 mark. And if you want to help us out, we would so appreciate that.
That'd be awesome.
That's right. So again, the last couple of episodes, we've been talking about how to overcome discouragement.
It's a big topic.
And last week we had such a privilege of Jake and Whitney coming on and sharing their story. This week we've got another couple coming on that we're excited about. But if you missed the last two, you might want to go back and re-listen to it. But in this episode, we're going to share another tool for overcoming discouragement, and that's around how to manage your mindset. So like I mentioned, we've got some clients coming to visit us today. Dan and Renee, we're so excited to share their story with you. And they're going to be talking about some times of disappointment and discouragement in their blended family journey and how they've been able to get unstuck simply by being open and willing to shift their own mindsets, especially around expectations, right? That's a hard one.
Expectations always get us.
So we're super excited to have them on the show today, and we're certain that you'll be able to relate to their story and to learn from them. But first, let's just talk about the impact of mindset and why managing your mindset can help to guard you from getting stuck in discouragement. Now, probably one of the most difficult and confusing mindsets for those in a blended family are the ones that get all jumbled up around our expectations. Yeah. We unintentionally set ourselves up for this sometimes because we set our expectations so high, and then when it doesn't happen, we feel disappointed, and that can often lead to discouragement. You know, Jake and Whitney touched on this last week. Yeah. Before they got married, they actually had this conversation about what it was going to be like after they got married, and everyone was living under the same roof.
A very detailed conversation.
Yeah, it was going to be so wonderful. And then how difficult it was later to just accept how differently things actually played out. Yeah. Nothing like what they expected.
Yeah, they really didn't accept it for quite some time because it was so difficult. And you know, this is where discouragement starts, with an expectation that actually seems pretty realistic, right? Yeah. In the beginning, we truly believe that things are going to be a certain way, and it makes sense. But then when we experience the opposite of that, we start to have this disillusionment, and we start to feel really disappointed. And when disappointments begin to multiply and they become more and more evident as we're faced with some tough realities that we really didn't expect and we don't want to have to deal with day after day after day, that's when we can become vulnerable to sinking into a place of chronic and painful discouragement.
Yeah, that's really powerful.
And you know, for most of us, we have a really hard time giving up those original expectations, right? Those wonderful dreams of how things are supposed to be because they're so great. Yeah. And the discomfort of our disappointment can drive us to some unproductive places emotionally. And then we tend to react in some ways that can create even more tension and more disconnection in our family. So we've got to call those out and talk about them.
Yeah. So let's talk about that before we dive in with Dan and Renee. You know, one common reaction is avoidance. We kind of just pretend that we're okay. We tell ourselves, oh, this will pass, or it's not that big of a deal. Even when really deep down inside, it is a big deal. And we're actually disappointed with what's going on. In a few minutes, you're going to hear from Renee, who's going to share her struggle with avoidance of the pain of disappointment and how that really didn't work very well for their situation. A mindset of avoidance never seeks to solve problems or resolve issues. I'm going to say that again. A mindset of avoidance never seeks to solve problems or resolve issues. The truth is, we either talk it out and then we work through the issue, or we end up acting it out, and usually not in the way we really want to. Yeah. And acting it out or trying to avoid it usually leads to irritation, buried anger, resentment, or just withdrawing altogether. Yeah. And this is where we can resort to passive or passive-aggressive ways of communicating, like we talked about back in episode 50.
Yeah, it's not helpful at all. You know, another way we tend to react to disappointment is that we start feeling bad about ourselves for feeling bad.
Yeah.
We start to beat ourselves up because things aren't working out the way we thought they would, and we feel guilty about our own disappointment. And sometimes we can blame ourselves for that. And again, Renee struggled with this as well. And you'll hear in a moment how she realized that she wasn't being compassionate with herself. That's so interesting. And last week, Jake, he also talked about experiencing guilt when things didn't go as he expected they would go. But the truth is, just because something feels bad doesn't mean it is bad or that we're bad. We need to remember that, because a mindset of guilt is paralyzing. And it's really unproductive for everyone.
Yeah, that's true. Now, a third way that we can sometimes react to disappointment is we strive to hold on to our own agenda in an attempt to make that original dream come true.
Oh, yeah.
Like we become aggressive or manipulative or demanding as we try to make our spouse and our family members conform to our desired expectations. And we might also react by blaming others for the things that we believe created our disappointment in the first place. We develop blind spots around the perspectives of our family members. Sometimes we become overly fixated on making our perfectionistic ideals happen. this rigid, inflexible mindset. It's an approach that really never works very well. I know this from some experience. and it leads to excessive pressure, to conflict and disconnection in the family. And at that point, we might go into fix-it mode.
Yeah, that's another common reaction.
Yeah.
Let's find the fix.
I have a tendency to jump to fix-it mode. But we start looking for that silver bullet that'll just set everything straight. You know, like how can we fix our spouse and fix our stepkids with that magic potion or silver bullet, the easy fix, and just get them quickly to change and conform to our expectations.
Oh, I wish that was out there.
Well, we want to find relief from that discomfort, and we're just looking for fast results. But we really aren't willing to face the complexity of our situation or understand all the different experiences and perspectives that our family members might be struggling with. We haven't really considered, when we're stuck in this mindset, that their unmet expectations and disappointments and frustrations might be there as well. Yeah. And we need to be working with them. We get fixated on just getting the problem solved. Yeah. I love the lyrics of a song by a guy named Ronnie Freeman that says, "No one wants the process, just the change." Like, I totally get that. I don't want to walk through the process. I just want the change.
Yeah. And usually we want to fix other people, not look at what we need to change.
Exactly. Well, if all that changed, then I'd be fine.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah. So the thing is, it's kind of like an iceberg, and we get really fixated on that tip of the iceberg. It's that pain point that keeps getting in our way. It's robbing us of our happily ever after. And we just want to find some way to just hack that tip of that iceberg off and get rid of it. But we haven't faced the reality about what's underneath the iceberg. Like
under the surface.
Yeah, all the unresolved issues, the loss, the grief, the complex dynamics, the loyalty binds. Like, we could go on and on.
So on. Yeah.
It's really what's under the surface that actually leads to our discouragement. We're looking to fix this tip of the iceberg with something quick and easy. But when we realize it's just not going to be that easy, rather than staying stuck, just focused on the tip of the iceberg, we've got to manage our mindset and be willing to dive underneath the surface and do the work that's going to really solve the problems.
So if we want to avoid falling into the trap of discouragement because we're dealing with these unmet expectations or disappointment, or maybe we're even feeling overwhelmed, we need to steer clear of those unhealthy reactions to the pain that we might be feeling. So those mindsets that we just talked about, avoidance, piling on a guilt trip on ourselves, being inflexible or grasping for that easy fix without understanding all of the dynamics and the facets of what's going on under the surface. And to do all this, you'll need to start by examining your mindset and then deciding what part of your mindset might need to be adjusted. Which is what we're going to explore today with our clients, Dan and Renee. But you might also need to go through the process of grieving or letting go of those original expectations so that they can be replaced with a more flexible and realistic mindset. And if you need some support around this takes some intentional effort to do this. Go back and listen to episode 14, which is called 3 Helpful Steps to Overcome Your Perfectionistic Ideals and Disappointments.
That's a good one.
And those 3 steps can really help you move through that healthy process of letting go and grieving. Because the truth is, it's nearly impossible to move forward and get beyond your disappointment until you've grieved your losses. And the fact that your original dream isn't happening the way you expected, that is a loss.
It is a loss, that's right.
It really is. It needs to be grieved. You need to be able to let go of some of those things so that you can create space for some new, more realistic expectations, and so that you can learn how to manage your mindset well. We all need this skill because, like we know, the blended family journey is full of unexpected things that can leave us feeling really disappointed or even discouraged. All right, so without further ado, let's introduce our clients, Dan and Renee, and hear their story of how they've been able to take positive steps towards readjusting their expectations, handling those disappointments, and managing their mindsets.
All right. Well, hey, we have been talking about managing our mindset, specifically around overcoming discouragement. And we're excited to have some special friends along with us today, Dan and Renee. Welcome to the show, Dan and Renee.
Yes, hi.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I wonder, before we get started, we've got some things that we wanted to ask you and have you share a little bit about managing mindset. Would you first, though, just share a little bit about your blended family dynamics?
Sure. We've been married about 3 years, and I brought 2 children to our family that are school age. They're 12 and 14, and Renee has 4 grown children, so they're all out of the house and on their own. And my 2 children, I share custody with their ex-wife.
Yeah. So 6 kids between the 2 of you. 4 of them are adults, and some of them have kids themselves, right? And
yes,
yeah,
3
yeah.
little grandsons.
Yay, that's so
It sounds
fun.
more chaotic than it is. Most of the chaos is actually caused by the dogs.
Yeah.
We have 2 dogs too.
2 dogs. That's right. That's right. And then you have 2 school-age kids moving back and forth. You know, we met you, I don't know, a couple of years ago, and we've had the privilege of supporting you and working with you guys. And we've just watched how you have had a mindset shift, and you've really been intentional about how you manage your mindset. And so we want to dig into that a little bit today. And we could start with talking about expectations. And so I wonder, would you guys share, what were your expectations leading into your marriage and kind of getting, almost everyone, 4 of you anyway, under the same roof? We're so excited to let you know about something brand new we've created just for you.
We've realized that with so many episodes available here on the show, it might feel a bit overwhelming to find the topics that matter most to you. That's why we've created a simple tool for you to receive a personalized playlist focused on your current struggle or your biggest challenge.
That's right. It's called the Blended Family Breakthrough Quiz. You'll answer just a few questions, and based on your responses, we'll email you a curated custom playlist of episodes that are specific to you.
This simple quiz will direct you to the most impactful episodes that pertain to you personally and keep you on track in your journey of discovery, learning, and growth. So, scroll all the way to the bottom of the show notes for this episode and click the link to take the Blended Family Breakthrough Quiz today.
Okay, let's get back to the discussion.
I thought it'd be fairly easy. Dating Renee was super easy. We got along so well. When we went to hang out with my boys, everything went smoothly. So I thought when we got married, it would be easy. I thought it would be like one big happy family. You know, I thought it would be similar to our first family, you know, where Renee was like their stepmom, but it was kind of like the same as their mom and in the way our family would interact. So I had I had high expectations that would be pretty easy and pretty similar to our first family.
Yeah. How about you, Renee? What were your expectations?
I wasn't quite that optimistic. My folks got divorced and my mom remarried, and I knew that things could be a little challenging in that area. And just to share a little bit, the father of my 4 children passed away, and I raised those 4 kids by myself and really didn't repartner or introduce anyone into their lives. And I didn't date anyone with kids because I just felt like I raised my kids. I was glad that I managed that process, and I really was looking to move ahead and not backwards. So I really wasn't looking for that. But when I met Dan, he was just so amazing. And then I met the kids, and before I knew it, I was like, oh, they're such sweet kids. How hard could it be?
So you broke your own rule about not dating somebody with kids. Dan, you were just too irresistible.
Yes.
I guess so.
The things we do for love, right?
Yeah.
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah. So you then, Renee, had a little bit of a less optimistic view that this was going to go just smooth sailing the whole way through.
Yes. I did. However, I too was, came to a little bit of awakening once we got married and were settling in. It was definitely harder than I expected.
Sure.
Yeah.
Tell us just a little bit about what actually happened when you got married and got everyone under the same roof.
Well, once we got married and moved in together, it was harder than we expected. We each had our own way of doing things. We had done our whole lives, me with the kids and Renee either on her own or when she had kids. And now they were different. We lived together, so we had to find ways to merge our way of doing things or compromise or do it one way or the other. And it was really, really hard. It was much more difficult than either of us thought it would be.
Yeah. Yeah. So you found that pretty challenging. What kind of things were you feeling as you were going through realizing, hey, wait, this isn't quite the fairy tale I thought it was going to be?
I did not think it was going to be a fairy tale, but what I remember thinking is I liked Dan's ex. We were kind of friends, and I liked her, and I liked the boys, and I just liked everybody. So I thought, okay, well, we all like each other, so it's going to be fine. And I guess it wasn't. I was so glad we found you guys, because I love what you say about it being about the dynamics, not the individuals, because that really rang true for us, because I really do like Dan's ex and the boys, but I wasn't prepared for the dynamics of it all, like the expectations going into things that everybody had and the changes. And at first I ended up kind of trying to go along with the program and think, oh, this isn't a big deal. I'm kind of the new girl on the block here. I can just go along with what everyone else was doing, and it's okay. And I was an independent woman before, and what's the big deal if the kids are over every day and the ex is always calling and this and that. And then I guess I kind of shoved it down, like it wasn't working for me, but I thought that it should, and I felt like I was being petty and mean, but then I was kind of like, wait a minute, like this is my husband, and why can't it be about us some of the time? And because I had kind of shoved those thoughts and feelings down, they kind of surfaced, and I didn't want to feel them or think about them. And I was not very compassionate with myself. And it kind of blew up when maybe if I had just been looking for that and expecting that and seeing these things, I could have communicated more openly, been more accepting of my own feelings, and communicated them more, like before things got out of hand, I guess.
Yeah. It sounds like you were experiencing some discouragement and some disappointment, and you were kind of shoving that down and almost feeling bad that you were not feeling good about where you were. Is that right?
Well, I thought that, I should just get over myself. This isn't about me. The kids should come first. They need their father. But when things really came to a head was when Dan's ex, who I thought was at least reasonably happy in her marriage started to disintegrate, and she leaned more heavily on Dan. And that's when things really came to a head. They were always like kind of around, like every day there was the kids here, the ex and this and that. And I liked them, and I thought, this is the way it is, and I like them, so what's the problem? But there really wasn't an us anymore, like when we were dating. When we were dating, there was an us. We went on our dates, and then he would go back and deal with his ex and his kids on his own time. But when we were all under one roof, it was like, they're kind of always here. How is this? How do I feel about this? I don't think I like this. And then when things started to go south in her relationship, and she was leaning more heavily on Dan, just because I feel like she just didn't have anyone else to turn to, and he was the father of the children.
Sounds like you felt like you were kind of left in the dust.
Totally.
Yeah. Dan, what was going on for you? So you had this idea that everything was going to be great, and then easy, and then you get under one roof and you start to realize, wait, this isn't going quite as great as I thought it was going to. Can you describe maybe what was going on inside for you?
Yeah, you hit the words right on the head. You said earlier, disappointing and discouraging, probably the two biggest things. I thought it would be easy, and it wasn't. It was very hard,
Yeah.
and I was disappointed that wasn't easy. It wasn't like the Brady Bunch, like I thought it would be. Where it just got along.
How come they had it so good?
I don't get why we couldn't just pull that off.
Yeah, exactly.
So disappointing and discouraging are probably the two best words.
Okay.
Yeah, it seems like all of us at one point in this blended family journey hit that place where we kind of realize this isn't what I signed up for. Wait a minute. What's going on?
Yeah, that's right.
And then we tend to get really discouraged about what's going on and how it's so different than what we expected going in.
Now, you guys weren't willing to give up, though. In fact, you reached out to us a number of months ago, and we started working just talking about what blended family dynamics really look like and how we go about building connection rather than allowing that conflict to take us out. Tell us a little bit about how understanding those blended family dynamics helped you to reset some of these expectations and go forward with a bit of a better mindset.
When we met you guys described your problems so accurately. You were like, this is the typical problem. And you described it. We're like, yes, that's exactly how we're feeling.
Because we've lived it.
Yeah, you've lived it. Your other clients have lived it. And you had names for things like, stuck insider and stuck outsider and all these things. And that just described us perfectly. Then you had tips on how to deal with it and to change your expectations. Like it's not not a first family, but it's a blended family, and it's got to work a little differently. And you just had really good tips for how we could deal with it, how we could talk to the kids, how we could talk to my ex, how we could talk to Renee. So it was just really helpful to reset those expectations that it's not going to be the Brady Bunch. It's going to be something a little different. It's hard, but we can figure out a way to work through it. So resetting expectations and helping us understand our situation, the dynamic really helped.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Dan, you've done an excellent job setting good boundaries, I have to say.
Yeah. Yeah, which took a mindset shift.
It did.
Yeah.
It did.
Yeah.
Great. Renee, earlier you said, learning that it's not the people, but it's the dynamics.
Mm-hmm.
That in itself is an approach to managing your mindset. Can you think of other ways, either of you guys, where you have a specific mindset change that you've experienced over the last several months?
One of the things is like birthday parties and things. Like I used to think we had to have one birthday party for the kids with both us and my ex-wife. And as our kind of relationship became much more stressed, we realized it'd be easier to have separate birthday parties, and it actually works just fine. And so just changing that expectation on what the right thing to do is. And the kids have no problem with it, and they enjoy both parties, and it just works out fine. And so we had to reset that expectation and realize, we can do this, and it's just fine a different way. Even though it's not the same as the first family, it's still really good.
Yeah.
And that's helped to reduce a lot of stress. It's amazing how when you get a great mindset shift, you realize, wow, this really does impact the stress levels.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's great. What about you, Renee?
I think it helped me to be a little more compassionate with myself. I thought I would be more able to go with things than I was. Like, I guess I took things harder than I thought I would, like moving here away from my own kids and my friends and being so far away from all the people that I cared about and being surrounded by these new people who were, that I really liked, but felt like an outsider in so many ways, and just navigating that. And I guess being a little more compassionate with myself about, like, that was real. It was okay if I had the whatever feelings that I had, and it didn't mean that I was all alone in the world. I could remember what was really true, which was that I am loved, and I did choose to be here, and I did that for good reasons. And just because this is a little harder than we thought doesn't mean that it's not worth doing. And that the dynamics that we have are common to all step families. There's no like switch and forget, like just find someone. It's because it's not about, and I do this in my line of work and my coaching too. Like you have to look at yourself before you just throw everything away and go for a new situation, because wherever you go, there you are.
Wow.
So it really is about your mindset. And I had to look at the ways I was thinking and ask myself, are those things that I'm thinking really true? Is this serving me? Is this what I want to think right now? Is this what I want to do with my life?
Those are really great mindset questions, Renee. Thank you for sharing that. I love that thought process of how do I have some compassion for myself? And I think, as we work with couples, and I know just as a step parent myself, how I have expected myself to show up perfectly. And if the kids don't respond exactly the way I think they're supposed to respond, then that means I've messed up in some way. And it's really easy to be hard on yourself, but getting that mindset shift around compassion for yourself. Thank you for sharing that. That's really important.
For sure.
Yeah.
I've done some hard things. That's really hard. And then when I was a stepmom, that was like a whole new level of hard. And I was confident with myself about that. I was like, well, I still expected to do it perfectly. And I didn't allow for how hard it was going to be. I didn't allow for maybe what was going to happen, how I was going to feel. And I'm so glad that we have resources like you guys to help explain this, because I feel like expectations can be so out of line with how this is supposed to look. Yeah. Even of ourselves, as step parents, we expect things that just are not realistic.
Yeah, that's good. So you've learned a lot along the way, and you still have conflict once in a while pop up.
Some setbacks.
Yeah, and we hit some setbacks only once in a while. Now, we've had the privilege of working with you guys through a process called Relate Strong. You kind of have hinted at that a little bit, but can you say, how has that created a mindset shift for you in the way that you want to respond to each other, even when emotions are high?
Well, it really highlighted I'll call it a downward spiral we always got stuck in, where we would get in a fight and get defensive and get angry. And it really was a spiral that just would continue to these hours long fights that were not really, sometimes you wouldn't have thought they'd be a big deal, but then they turned into it. Yeah. So the process you taught us about kind of realizing the truth of our situation, and just going through that process and looking at our notes of how we can go into a positive cycle instead of a negative, it just really helps a lot. So it was just a good process, a good thing to remember. And, we have those notes that we regularly look back on to make sure we don't get in that negative spiral.
Yeah.
So it's helped with the downward spiral. It's helped to reverse that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When we remember to do it. And that's an act of discipline. Right. And I've got to say, Dan is so much better at doing it than I am, because I'm the emotional one who just sort of flies off. And Dan's an engineer, so he's like really level-headed and brilliant, and I'm a little more volatile. So
Dan, good job using the tools.
Yeah,
right?
That's great.
Tools are useless when they remain in the toolbox.
Right.
Yeah.
But they are amazing tools.
So when you use the tools, what do you notice about your mindset that changes from those times when you don't use the tools?
I think we just remember that we love each other. We're not trying to hurt each other. We're in a tough dynamic. The step family is a difficult dynamic. We're in that dynamic. We have to just do our best to work with it. We shouldn't get mad at each other. We just need to continue to love each other and find solutions and not get into this downward spiral. So just remember, it's not either of us. It's just the dynamic is tough.
It sounds like it takes you from being two individuals to really being a team trying to solve your problems together.
More united.
Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So it's probably safe to say that you still feel discouragement sometime. Is that right?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think about this and I think, okay, this is part of life, right? We are a step family and this is a second marriage for both of us. And there are all kinds of opportunities in life to be discouraged, right? This is not the only one.
Sure.
So by the time you land on your second marriage and you've got some kids, you've done some hard things.
Mm-hmm.
And you've made it through those things. And you can learn some tools to navigate those things. Or what, you could just give up and see if you do better next time. You'll probably be discouraged at some point in the future as well. Why not learn how to handle discouragement? It's not like you can go somewhere else, like, I don't know, maybe some other planet and have everything be awesome. So why not just learn how to handle discouragement? Because we are here on planet Earth and we have to do hard things sometimes.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is rather than avoiding it or running from it, actually walk through it and work through it.
Yeah, even though it's hard. It's like, I don't know, I ran marathons, I had babies, I trained dogs. Like there are some hard things, and you do them and then you make it through and you say, wow, I ran the marathon, I trained the dog, I raised the kid, I paid off the mortgage, I got the promotion, I made it through high school or college or what. Like there are things in life that are hard, and it doesn't make them not worth doing. You do them.
If you could give a number one tip for overcoming that discouragement rather than staying in it, what would you say that would be, Renee?
Well, I do like to wallow. That said,
let's just make that clear, right?
Yeah. Well, every once in a while, I catch myself wallowing, and for me, the question is, oh, and then I notice myself, and I say, oh, Renee, I see you're wallowing. How's this working for you? Whatever it is, find your little thing that works for you, and just wiggle it loose. You don't have to walk all the way into the next, nirvana or whatever it is. But if you could just wiggle loose whatever it is that you're thinking, like, all right, is it really true that this is as awful as I think it is? Is there just one tiny little shift I could make? It doesn't have to be the whole thing, but is there just one little step I could take? Like, I'm in this place right now where I think it's the end of the world, and I feel like what am I doing here? Why am I in this place? Everything's against me, and my stepkids, my own kids, my spouse, my person's ex.
And the dogs.
The dog hates me. Like, could you just find one little happy thing? Could you just take one step and then maybe one more? Right. Could you take a bath? Could you go for a walk? Could you call a friend? Could you, just a little bit to just wiggle it loose? Maybe it's not all true. Maybe all of those terrible things that you're thinking, just not to respond to them in the moment, to just say, okay, really, maybe I could just move one little millimeter, even one.
Yeah. As a fellow wallower, I find that I will magnify the negative, and I won't look for any positive when I'm in that place. And if you can take the negative down even a notch, rather than amping it up and magnifying it, look for something positive to deflate it even a bit. That can help a lot personally.
Yeah. Sometimes it even takes me a minute to find any positive. Sometimes I fold my arms and stamp my feet and I'm like, there's nothing positive. This is all horrible. And then even when I'm in that place, if I could just take a deep breath and go okay, all right, maybe if I can't even find one positive thing, it passes fairly quickly. But even if right in this moment I can't find anything positive, is all of the negative absolutely true? Yeah. Sometimes I just take myself on a little thought experiment and I'm like, okay, is it really all that bad? Is there even one thing that maybe isn't true? So for instance, when one of my stepkids is really, I feel like being difficult or annoying or whatever, I could think okay, well, is it really true that they're always annoying? Is there maybe not a time when that's not true? Is it really true that this is quite as bad as it is? Is it really, is it always as bad? No, it's not. It's maybe just seems terrible right this afternoon,
Yeah.
I love that.
And even if they're going through an annoying stage, which kids do, that can last a while, it's not the end of the story, right? It doesn't mean things aren't going to change.
Right.
Well, and the thing that I found was I had 4 kids who were plenty annoying. I always tell Dan, my poor kids annoyed me way more than yours ever will because they had more time and there was more of them.
You were outnumbered.
Like your kids will never catch up. My kids were way more annoying, but it's somehow okay to be annoyed with your own children.
Exactly. It is different. It is different when you're feeling annoyed by your own children than by your stepchildren. That's right. But I love the way you keep pointing to truth. And you challenge yourself. Is this negative stuff really true? And if even part of it, the answer is no, then what is really true? Right. And you start to focus on that. And what a great mindset strategy.
Yeah, it's kind of like wiggling a loose tooth. If you can just start to wiggle it a little, like, can I find one little place to wiggle that's the place that's not, can I find one thing that's not true? Is it always true? What percentage of the time is it true? And you wiggle and pretty soon it's gone. That's
good. So Dan, if you could identify just one thing that has brought a mindset shift for you, and maybe you had a friend that was saying, man, how do you get your mind, wrapped around something different? What's your advice?
I think just understanding that it's the dynamic that's the problem more so than Renee or the kids or the ex. It's the dynamic is a challenge that everyone has, and everyone's trying to do their best. And doing the peace cycle, looking through that, reminding myself what the truth is about my relationship with Renee, and just remember it's the dynamic, it's not the individual that is causing the challenge, and we can work through it as a team rather than fighting about it. And it really helps to get through the challenges.
Yeah, and you guys are a fantastic team, by the way.
Yes, agreed. Yeah, you guys have worked really hard.
We love your teamwork.
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Well, this has been really great. We're so grateful that you've taken the time to be with us on the show. And I just want to point out one thing real quick too, as we come to a close, that Renee, you do some work in this area of mindset shift as well. You're a coach, and I'd love for you to share a little bit about this. And for our listeners, I would love for you, as you listen, to think about a friend or a coworker or a family member that might be in this position, and maybe you might say, hey, it's time for you to reach out to Renee and connect with her. So tell us just a little bit about what you do, Renee.
Thanks. I was single for a long time. My ex passed away back in the mid-90s, and I ended up raising 4 kids by myself as a young widow. And it was really hard. And I pretty much read all the self-help books. And once the dust settled, I was like, oh my goodness, I would like to find someone to share my life with. And this was the 90s. We were just starting to get introduced to online dating. It was sort of a new territory. And I had a really hard time meeting people to date. I found myself really wishing that I could have some help and support in that area because I just didn't know what I was doing. And I found out through trial and error the hard way. So that is what I am doing my coaching with now is helping women navigate dating so they can have the relationship they really want. Because most of us, especially if we're a little older, maybe single moms, maybe been around the block a couple of times, had some disappointments in life, you get out of a relationship or time passes on and it's not natural knowing how to date or what to do or how to really advocate for yourself to make sure that you get the relationship you want and date effectively instead of just showing up and kind of seeing what life throws at you. So I really help women in navigate dating so that they can have what they want and find the guys who want the things that they want and share those. I was obviously able to do this myself. Dan and I met on Tinder. Okay. So it really can happen, even on Tinder. It really doesn't matter what website or app you use. What matters is navigating dating with the right tools.
Yeah, and being really intentional.
For sure.
Yeah, and so you help build that intentionality around mindset and help them think about how they're going about dating. Let's say somebody's listening and they're like, oh man, my sister really needs to talk to Renee, or my coworker down the hall needs to talk to Renee. How do people find you?
You can find me at ReneeSuzanneCoaching.com. I have a great website, tons of blogs, great videos with all kinds of dating advice. I've heard it all and I can help you.
Cool.
Great.
That's great. And we will link to that in the show notes. So make it really easy for people to find you.
Thank you.
Dan and Renee, we just want to thank you for your insights. You guys have just been so helpful at helping us understand what we need to do to overcome our discouragements and not get stuck there, and to have a healthy mindset as we manage all of these blended dynamics. And so thank you so much for being part of the show today. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's been so great working with you too, Mike and Kevin. We just so appreciate you working with us.
Yeah, I just want to say one thing too, is it's because you overcame your discouragement that you're an inspiration to us, and that you're here and that we're all here listening to this podcast, because I know you have shared very openly on your podcast and in your courses that you have that you came very close yourself to calling it quits. Yeah. And it's because you didn't. It's because you pushed through your discouragement that you are here as an inspiration and example to us doing the work you're doing. And I know it goes beyond you guys. I'm glad you're worked through it and that you're happy and that you've kept your family together, but you've given such a gift to everyone that you ever touched because you overcame your discouragement. And thank you for that.
Well, thanks for those kind words, you guys. Yeah, we're very grateful to be able to support.
Definitely.
Hey, guys, again, thanks so much for being on the show, and we look forward to connecting with you again very soon.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Wow, what a valuable conversation. Some great little golden nuggets in there, some great insights. And I just want to commend Dan and Renee for the hard work they've put into their marriage and their family, and just for being vulnerable and sharing some of their story and their personal mindset shifts with us today.
Yes.
So helpful. And what's interesting and kind of cool is that within the defeating word of discouragement is this really powerful and mighty word, courage. I love that. And both of the lovely, amazing couples we've had come on our show during this season about overcoming discouragement, Dan and Renee and Jake and Whitney from last week, they are two incredibly courageous couples.
Agreed.
They really are. They've navigated some really tough stuff and they've experienced a lot of disappointment, but they didn't allow themselves to stay stuck in discouragement. Both these couples had the courage to reach out for help when they needed it, and they made some profound investments in their marriage and their family. They're great examples of all the things we've been talking about through this series. They've been able to use their setbacks as opportunities for new growth and insight. They've learned how to manage their mindsets, and they're certainly devoted to their development. We've seen that. And I'm just so proud of them and amazed by their courage to keep taking steps forward, even when they felt really discouraged. They didn't stay stuck.
That's right. They didn't. Yeah. And, you mentioned about being devoted to their development. Both of these couples have actually engaged in our Relate Strong training.
That's right.
And as Dan just mentioned, it's that skill that has been helping him and Renee not to fall into that downward spiral in their communication that used to lead to big fights, right? We know that too.
Of course.
Now they're more united as a team, and they're able to work through those tough dynamics and find solutions to their problems. And so I just real quick want to remind you, if you're listening, that in celebration of our 50th episode, a few episodes back, we have a special offer right now on our Relate Strong coaching. And that's $100 off if you sign up before October 1st. All you need to do is use the coupon code episode 50, and we'll put a link to the checkout page right on the show notes, and you can get started with us. We'd love to have you.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate what Renee said. I think her quote was, just because something is hard doesn't mean it's not worth doing. Man, that statement makes me think back on all the hard things we've done, hon.
Yeah.
Both individually and as a couple. I mean, we've had to do some hard work on both levels, right?
To move beyond our discouragements.
Yeah, it's really hard work. But I wonder where we'd be if we'd just given up, or simply because we didn't want to do the work, or because we thought it was just too hard.
Oh, I know. I don't think we would have made it, honestly.
Don't either.
We probably would have divorced, and then eventually each of us would have remarried, only to discover that the grass isn't really greener.
Yeah,
I really think
true.
that's what have happened. And that was another one of Renee's quotes that was so impactful. She said, wherever you go, there you are.
It's you. You're the common denominator. I think Bono said that. I don't know who said it before that. Yeah.
She's basically saying that sooner or later, you'll need to deal with some hard stuff if you want to experience something different. And if you want relational success, right? Regardless of who you're with, you're going to drag your baggage right into that relationship.
Yep.
So her advice was to walk through the discouragement, even though it's hard. And then she also asked this question: what's one tiny shift or step you could take?
I love that question, especially as a coach. Like, that's a great question, right? We all need to answer that and ask ourselves right now. So, honey, I know that sometimes you get discouraged, right? What's one tiny little step or shift that you want to walk through the discouragement, even though it might be hard sometimes?
Well, it's a bit of a mindset shift that will also have to take some action, and it's not going to be new to you, because at one point you communicated to me that you needed this, and you needed me to be more involved and more proactive and more engaged in our romantic relationship.
Yes. And we're not talking about physical intimacy. We're talking about romance.
Yes, exactly. And connection. This may surprise some of you, but Mike is much more romantic than me. Maybe it won't surprise you that he loves to plan date nights and surprises and fun things. And he has made it really clear that he would feel cared for and loved if I did some of that.
I agree.
And so that's an area.
Well, I agree with what I said. Yes.
But this is an area where I tend to get overwhelmed because I just can't think of things, or is it within the budget or the schedule? And I get really overwhelmed, and then I get discouraged, and then I do nothing.
Yeah.
So this is an area where I need to take a next step, do a tiny shift that will move us more in that direction.
Okay. Well, I look forward to that.
More romantic connection. Yes, I'm sure you do.
I love that. Yeah.
I look forward to it too.
Yeah. That's good.
But it's not going to be easy.
Well, thanks.
What about you, honey? What's one tiny shift or step that you could take right now?
Yeah, well, this won't be a surprise to you either, and it's really current for me. I've been thinking a lot about my life rhythm. I feel kind of overwhelmed in this season right now between what we do in supporting couples, and then I get to support another local organization and do some work over there. We've got 2 teenagers still at home, and I just have a lot going on in a lot of different ways. And so on top of that, I've got to get better about my physical health, right?
Health issues.
I'm type 2 diabetes, and so I need to get better at my exercise and watching my diet, and I can't afford to do the COVID-10 or whatever they call that. And so, yeah, I think my next steps are really focused on life rhythm.
Yeah, that's good.
All right. So those are the areas that we're going to be focused on, and where we want to make some mindset shifts, be devoted to our development and really building better habits in these areas. And then use those times where it just doesn't go our way, because it won't every time. We're not going to get this perfect, but we're going to use that for learning and for growth.
Sure. Imperfect progress.
That's right. And guess what? We want to take these kinds of steps right along with you right here on the podcast. So we're excited to talk about this. We're going to do something a bit unique next week that we're excited about and that you get to participate in.
Yay.
So our episode next week is going to be the first day of a daily challenge that will take place throughout the week. And what we've learned over the years is that insight is great, and we hope the past few episodes we've brought some great insight. However, insight without action falls short.
Ooh, say that again.
That's right. This is for anybody who listens to podcasts regularly, and I'm talking to myself as well. Insight without action falls short. I find all kinds of insight in the podcasts I listen to, and sometimes I don't follow that up with action. So it doesn't do anything for me. But if you want to make change, if you want to do something different in your blended family, and you want to build deeper bonds, a closer marriage, and some more unity in parenting, then you've got to take action. And that's what our challenge is all about.
Yeah. And we know it can be hard to take these things that we've been talking about and then come up with a game plan.
Sure, yeah.
So starting Tuesday morning, we're going to walk you through a very simple process of building your game plan and taking the next steps. And we're going to be working on our own steps along with you.
That's right.
It's going to be awesome. You don't want to miss it. Yeah.
Now, by the way, if you're not already subscribed to the show on Apple Podcasts or whatever platform you listen on, then make sure you do that now. If you're depending on our weekly email or our social media posts to catch our episodes, then you might actually miss part of the challenge because most of the challenge is only going to be released right here on the show. So hit subscribe to make sure you don't miss anything. And while you're at it, just consider leaving a rating or review. Remember, we're not quite to that goal of 50 ratings yet, and we just love your help in getting there. So we can't wait to kick off the challenge next week with you.
Next week's challenge.
And with that, we're going to make this episode a wrap.
Until next time.